All right, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's Super here, and welcome to a pretty scary video. I guess the topic of the video is pretty scary for a lot of us who are fans of Mortal Kombat. Hold on, let me move this here. By the way, shout out to you guys for supporting the Mortal Kombat X content. I'm definitely going to focus a lot on MKX now that I know that you guys really want to watch it over things like Injustice 2, MK11. So I'll be recording a lot more of that in the upcoming weeks. So thank you guys for that. But today we're talking about Mortal Kombat because, as you guys know, Netflix and Warner Brothers have sort of came to an agreement to, Netflix buy Warner Brothers for, I think, $82 billion or something like that. A little chunk change, nothing to, think about. But with the news of that happening, there's been statements from the CEO of Netflix, talking about the gaming division now recently. And this article by Kotaku sort of highlights the fact that it's very scary for the gaming division of Warner Brothers with this Netflix acquisition, if it goes through, by the way. So legally, Warner Brothers is forced to look at the best option for their shareholders. And recently, a few days ago, Paramount has actually made an even bigger bid than Netflix with, I think, $100 billion. So legally, they have to actually consider Paramount instead of just, agreeing to close the deal on the Netflix deal for $82 billion. And not only that, but also this probably won't take into effect until maybe 2027, maybe even later, who knows, because it has to get approved by Congress, by the government, because it's a huge acquisition. So that's going to take a long time. So I'm just going to say this. I don't think that the game that's being developed at the moment, because that started before MK1 was even out, I don't think it's going to have any effect on the current game that we're going to get whenever we get it, whether we get it April, September of next year, or God forbid in 2027. I don't think it's going to affect this current game that's being worked on, but it will certainly affect the future. But anyway, the article, like the headline of the article that everyone was, talking about was, let me see, the quote was, Netflix considers Warner Brothers gaming division to be pretty much worthless. So that's the article from Kotaku, right? Set the internet aflame. And then if you read the article, it's not as bad as it sounds, but Netflix is a streaming service. What they care about are shows, movies, TV shows. That's what they've built their name off of. They have a gaming division, but they failed miserably on trying to produce games that appeal to the gaming industry. So now all they do is just mobile games. But let me read you guys the actual quotes from the co-CEO. Let me see, where does it say here? I have it on my phone. So Netflix co-CEO Gregory Peters told investors that when it came to Warner's gaming division, it didn't even factor in to the $83 billion deal. It was apparently considered to add nothing to the company's overall value, because so that's just the headline, or that's written up by Kotaku. This is the actual quote. I'll read you guys the actual quotes. They're relatively minor compared to the grand scheme of things. So that's the actual quote from the co-CEO, calling the gaming division for Warner Brothers, who literally had a gazillion-dollar game in Hogwarts in 2023, beating out games like Call of Duty, who always sell like crazy, minor in the grand scheme of things. I will give it the benefit of the doubt, because when you think about what they're after, which is the years and years and years of library of movies, TV shows, and the properties that Warner Brothers has made, obviously the gaming division is minor compared to that, but it's definitely not minor with the potential of revenue that it could provide for the company. So there's another quote around here. Let me see. Where was it? There was a quote that seemed a little bit more positive here. I'm just going through and skipping a lot of. Okay. So the CEO, this is a direct quote. While they definitely have been doing some great work in the gaming space, we actually didn't attribute any value to that from the get-go because they're relatively minor compared to the grand scheme of things. So that's a direct quote from the CEO. That actually does seem pretty bad. But like I said, what they're after, they're a streaming site. They're after the movies, the TV shows, all that stuff. So they look at the gaming division as minor at the moment. I just want to read you guys the quotes because there's a lot of fluff in here. All right, so another quote here. We like some of wait. No, that's not. Yeah, there's a lot of fluff in here. Hold on. There is another quote at the end. Okay. It's somewhere around here. We have done quite well, I think. All right, here we go. So the quote is, now we're super excited because some of those properties that they've built, Hogwarts is a great example of that, have done quite well. And we think that we can incorporate that into what we're offering. So that's like the positive side of the quote. But they just mentioned what they're offering, which is what they're offering at the moment with their, gaming division is just mobile games. And obviously mobile games is a big casual thing that can make a lot of money, microtransactions, stuff like that. But there was no mention of, I guess producing or continuing to produce AAA titles like Hogwarts, like Mortal Kombat. So if this Netflix deal goes down, there's a strong chance that there might be no AAA title games in the future, or at least in the near future. Maybe they sell off the, NetherRealm Studios. Maybe they license out the Mortal Kombat IP with NetherRealm Studios to another company. But yeah, it's pretty clear that the gaming side of Warner Brothers is very, 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 very minor and overlooked by Netflix, which to us is really, really disappointing. I don't think there's anything else. Okay, so there was one more quote, and then he just closed it out by saying, so let me read you guys the other quote to tie it in here. Now we're super excited because of those properties that they've built. Hogwarts is a great example of that, have done quite well. And we think that we can incorporate that into what we're offering. And then the final quote is just, so we think that there's definitely an opportunity there. But just to be clear, we haven't built that into our deal model. So yeah, it's pretty clear that the gaming division of Warner Brothers is just completely being overlooked by Netflix, which to me is a really, really bad sign, because it means that they will not hesitate in closing down a company like NetherRealm Studios, or closing down the potential of having AAA title games like Mortal Kombat, and instead turning that property that they own now into just mobile games. And yes, don't get me wrong, Mortal Kombat Mobile is actually very successful. It's still going on since Mortal Kombat X, and I think the Injustice mobile app kind of merged with that, right? Or is it just a Mortal Kombat mobile app? I know that it's popular, and I know that it's still running at the moment. So people are going to play those mobile games, right? But for us who care about, fighting games, this is a really, really bad sign. And I just hope that I think the best case scenario, if this Netflix acquisition actually ends up happening, the best case scenario would be them realizing that they have these AAA studios that produce these games that make millions and millions of dollars, and they put money into those studios to at least give them a chance to continue doing what they're doing, right? Because I think during their attempt at making a gaming division, I don't think they ever had like a AAA studio, right? I don't think they ever had a AAA studio like NetherRealm Studios creating Mortal Kombat and selling millions and millions of copies every year and profiting a ton for a company like Warner Brothers that had incredible flops and failures, right? And even though MK1 wasn't everyone's favorite, it still sold, probably at this point, like 7 million copies. And that's still a lot. And I'm pretty sure they were still profitable. So I'm hoping that like the best case scenario is that if this actually goes through, that they realize that they have AAA studios that create AAA title games, and they give them a chance to, be part of their plan to make a profit on this deal. Now, the worst case scenario is that they close down NetherRealm Studios and they turn the Mortal Kombat IP into just Netflix shows, Netflix movies, and then mobile games. That would be like the worst, because I know that the Mortal Kombat property, as far as like if this goes through, if the shows, they'll probably make Mortal Kombat shows. They'll definitely continue making a Mortal Kombat movie, because those if you guys remember during the pandemic, on streaming, Mortal Kombat 2021 released on streaming, and it was really, really, like, it was huge. It was one of the highest streamed movies of the year. So obviously the Mortal Kombat property is not really going to go anywhere, but the worst case scenario for us is they stop making these AAA games, especially like fighting games for us with Mortal Kombat, Injustice, or whatever, they could potentially make. So very, very scary times. And, I haven't really made videos on this topic just because I'm not really an expert at it. I don't really follow it too much. But I mean, that's what clickbait titles do, right? They catch your attention, went to read the article, and yeah, it's pretty scary for Mortal Kombat and Injustice, and a lot of your Batman Arkham games that you guys all love. It's scary in the future because Netflix is focused on being a streaming movie site, TV shows or streaming shows. I don't know how much different Paramount would be. I know that they're trying to outbid Netflix. I don't know if they just wouldn't touch anything with the gaming division and, just let NetherRealm cook. That sounds a lot better to me, than having the potential of, NetherRealm Studios not making these Mortal Kombat fighting games anymore and having just be relegated to like the mobile version of Mortal Kombat and Injustice in the future with no AAA fighting game. That sounds pretty freaking depressing as a Mortal Kombat fan. So I'll keep you guys updated if anything major happens. Like I said, I don't really cover these kind of topics because I'm not an expert at it. I don't really know too much of what's going on before this, and then I started reading up on it, sort of educated myself on it. But that doesn't mean that I'm gonna be hyper focused on this right now. I'm hyper focused on whatever the next project is from NetherRealm, because that's not really going to be affected in the way of things are like the studio is going to get shut down or anything like that. But yeah, two scenarios, guys. Well, there could be a scenario of like nothing happens and they just like go business as usual. Like if Netflix just buys them and they're just like, all right, just keep doing your thing. We won't add any extra funding. You'll get the budget that you always got and just keep on making good games, or keep on making games. I don't know if you guys would consider MK1 good. I don't know if I would consider it like good, but the gameplay is good for me. Either that, Or they could be like, all right, guys, we're turning Mortal Kombat into a mobile game and Injustice into a mobile game. And we're just going to focus on the Mortal Kombat property being movies and shows on Netflix. Man, that sounds horrible. Sounds like the apocalypse right there. But that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Obviously, as a content creator, it's really scary, but at the same time, you kind of know the risk about focusing on a niche like Mortal Kombat fighting game. And even though it's very popular in general, as far as people love watching Mortal Kombat, people love watching Injustice, there's always a risk like things could happen like this where things might in the future not exist, and then that's where you adapt. I adapted from Call of Duty to Mortal Kombat and Injustice, and then I will do the same. I will be on the internet creating videos for a very, very long time, so don't worry about that. I'll just move to Street Fighter, Marvel Tokon, the Avatar game, which I didn't even like get a chance to play because I was I was on vacation. But yeah, everything's gonna be all right with that. I just gotta move on to different fighting games if the worst case scenario happens. But who knows, guys? Who knows? It's still ways away. Still needs to get approved. Paramount is still trying to fight for it, like counter fight for it. So anything can happen. Thank you guys so much for watching. If there's like any huge updates, I will make another video. But for now, yeah, it's definitely scary. It is actually very scary for Mortal Kombat as a fighting game. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.